So how can we use a blinking LED, a light source, to control an audio signal, specifically the amplitude of an audio signal? Well, if you've ever heard of optical compression, this is like a really desirable and potentially extremely expensive high-end way of compressing an audio signal. And the way it works is by toggling a light on and off, so that when the light is on, the signal comes through, and when the light is off, it can't pass through. So we all have seen photoresistors, and these do exactly that. When there is light, they have less resistance, and when there is no light, they have a lot of resistance. So we're going to construct something called an opto-isolator, which is when you take a photoresistor like this one, and you wet it to an LED, and you seal it somehow. So I really recommend starting with an LED that you know works. So these LEDs both work on this circuit I have going. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, also just a note, this is the same circuit in the last video, but I've changed the resistor to a potentiometer and a slightly smaller capacitor. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to grab this LED. This is a 5mm LED, so it fits almost perfectly, well, very snugly, into this 5mm diameter heat shrink tube that I have cut out here. So I'm going to go ahead and insert it in here. I kind of have to finesse it a little bit, I think. Yep, there it goes. Kind of feel that it's about halfway. Okay. You want it to be completely covered. You need to minimize the light that's getting into this tube. On the other side is my photoresistor, and it could go a little deeper, I think, so I'm going to pull this back. The photoresistor is really what you want to isolate, so there's no stray light. Okay, good. That's about what it should look like. Now, the LED is snug, but the resistor is kind of just hanging out there, so I'm going to balance it like this. And then I have my heat gun, which I'm going to turn on. Has to warm up. That looks pretty good. The end could be a little tighter, but let me see if I can get it to go a little more. I think that's about it. You don't want to keep the heat gun on too long. It'll start to melt your components, or potentially the rubber. I don't know at what temperature it melts. So now I have what's called an opto-isolator. And importantly, I have this long leg of the LED, which tells me the polarity, and the polarity of the resistor doesn't matter. So now you can imagine how this might work in a circuit. So if I go ahead and plug this back in to this board here, and we can't see it blinking anymore, but we know it is blinking. I guess we can see, well, nope. Well, presumably it's blinking in there. We could test it with connecting something to this resistor. But now all we do is we pass an audio signal through these two leads. And so when the light is off, very, very little audio will pass. A tiny amount will pass, but almost nothing. And when it's on, the full signal will pass through. So there are a lot of things you can do with this now. So let's say I could set up two of these. I could have this, I could make this also an opto-isolator, and I could pass one audio signal to both. And then let's say have two jacks, two outputs. One goes to one speaker, the other goes to another speaker. So that way you have this audio signal, the same audio signal, that's panning across two speakers in a stereo field. So this one's on, this one's, then off, and like this, on, off. You could also set it up in such a way that you have two different audio signals coming in. So you could make two circuits and have one go to this opto-isolator, the other to the other one, and they're also passed out to two speakers, so that you're hearing two different circuits turning on and off in the stereo field. And a good way to control this is if you have a resistor that you can set to a really low value, you can get it to the point where essentially the LED is on all the time because it's blinking so fast. So in a way, this allows you to, let's say, turn off this effect. And then during performance or whatever, and you want to get some tremolo, you can turn the knob and then turn it back. Something like this. So you can have this effect on or off. Now, we can take this and go much, much further with it. So if you remember, I showed you very briefly this divider chip, and I'm going to go ahead and plug this in the breadboard and make one more video for you to show you that you can get some really complex rhythms. Like right now we just have on, off, but we could set it up so that there are sort of nested rhythms that are happening here. And if we wanted to get really complicated, we could figure out a way to get a clock signal into this that's sort of uneven. So we could get polyrhythms and all kinds of crazy things. Anyway, the possibilities are unlimited at this point, but this shows you the basic starting point.